At 7 minutes after 7 o'clock, the Situation Room on this Thursday, the 23rd of October. And continuing our conversations this morning, as we must. There are many things happening in the country at the moment, in the region, the world, of course. And we make sure that we have a little bit of a touch and feel out of all of that as we get into conversations this morning. There's a women rep for Kirinyaga County. Her name is Jerry Minor, and she's back. And she's here with us this morning. Weshima, good morning.
Good morning to you too.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Karibu Sana. We're going to be looking into a number of things. They, of course, have a political sway and a tint. We'll look into the Cyber Crimes Act and, of course, the Bill 2024, essentially that amends that act in a little bit. And, of course, what it could portend. Of course, we saw the courts pronounce themselves yesterday and say, you know what, put a hold on all of that. But let's look at what's making up all of the hullabaloo. And, of course, hear from you on other matters whereby you've been very vocal about in the past and then coming into the present and the future. So we'll do that a little bit. But Dennis wants to welcome you in the Situation Room, Wayne. We'll hear from him.
Yeah, so today we are in Cabo Verde, also known as Cape Verde, and it's the capital city prior located in Santiago Island. So the country has a population of around 560,000 people. And you talk about its economy, and the economy is powered mostly by remittances that are sent back by the citizens of the country, majority who are in Portugal. But the proverb that we get from them today, you sow wind, you reap storm. You sow wind, you reap storm. How would you interpret that?
Interesting. That you sow wind, but you reap storm. Maybe when you sow something that is empty, you will get a very negative outcome out of it.
Yeah. Emptiness, negativity.
You get emptiness
Same
out of
WhatsApp
it.
group. Yeah.
All right. So let's look into a number of things, shall we? We saw some bills passed last week. They were assented to by the president, but that was just the last leg of it. By him signing them into law, that means that there was public participation. That means that there was a first, second, and third reading in Parliament. That means that the representatives of the people of Kenya actually had a conversation, and the majority said, this is okay, we can go ahead with it. But then we've also heard you in certain spaces explaining to us what this particular one on the Cyber Crimes Act Amendment Bill 2024 then essentially is about. And you spoke about that, but we just wanted to get from your understanding as a politician and as well as an advocate of the High Court, what exactly this bill means. So maybe just give us some information about that in the beginning so that we can see how we're having a conversation around that. What does this bill portend, essentially, and what was being put together?
I think there's a lot of conversation about the bill, and essentially now it is an act because the president recently assented into it.
Yeah.
And we do recall there's a mother act, the 2018 Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. And these act now portends, the 2025 one, portends to amend the 2018 Mother Act. And, you know, the devil is always in the details. If you just glance at it, you could think that it is very short. It's very brief, by the way. I think 7 clauses at most. Very brief. But then if you go deeper and check the very integral parts that it portends to amend, you find that it wants to muzzle Kenyans in the way that we do have the NC4. It's the National Computer and Cyber Crimes Coordination Committee. It has been given express powers by these amendments to switch off, to delete websites or applications without any consultation with a judicial authority. So they can just decide at night, well, we don't like TikTok, what's happening there? Let's switch it off. We don't like the conversation on Twitter, let's switch it off. And that is my concern, because it will affect expressly Articles 32, 33, and 34. The freedom of the media, that is 34. 33, freedom of expression. 32, freedom of belief and opinion, because Kenyans do have a right. And it is so general in the scope that sometimes I tell people, I was joking, that saying one term can be declared unlawful. You know, what is unlawful? It is so vague in its description. And we know that the Kenyan government and African governments and governments cannot be given that power without supervision. So that is my major concern for me. It is the devil in the details.
Right. So to then be able to, according to what you're saying, 32, 33, 34, those articles in the Constitution which guarantee freedom of expression, the question is that where do freedoms end and where do others begin? In terms of curtailing and saying, you know what, you can't just say anything, but then what can you say? And then who should be the one to decide what you can or cannot say? Who's the one to decide that what might hurt you would not hurt somebody else, so that somebody else would be able to gloss over it and not have a feeling? And I take this very expressly with former President Uhuru Kenyatta. The man got off X. And he said, you know what? Okay, fine. You guys can be there saying whatever you want to say. I will remove myself from that space and continue doing what I want to do. We've seen it coming out of a different thing here with President Ruto, whereby people have said and done and drawn and not drawn things. And there seems to be a direct answer to that you cannot actually be in those spaces doing the things that you want to do. Should you then be able to ignore, as one did, and not pay mind to it? But then on this other side as well, do you as an individual feel sensitive when you see something like that, and then use the law essentially to protect your feelings?
I do think we're having a different conversation in terms of the current amendments and the Mother Act, because the Mother Act is very express on what is unlawful or illegal in regard to cyberbullying and cyber crimes and all that. And that even the Constitution of Kenya, if you do read Article 33, the one guaranteeing the freedom of expression, expressly states what is not freedom of expression. But then I do think the conversation that is being pushed by the government is that, well, we are actually enacting this law to ensure that, or rather the amendments are going to address concerns about cyberbullying and harassment. But the Mother Act already addressed that. The actuality of it, or the facts of it, is that it is actually hiding behind it to empower the NC4 without supervision. What I'm asking for as an advocate, as a court officer, let us have supervision. The NC4 cannot be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. It cannot decide overnight. I mean, we have seen when there were the commemoration of the 2024 25th of June protests, that some media stations were actually gagged, you know, without prior supervision. That is the danger. Just imagine what would happen. What happened in Nepal? I mean, we must make laws for posterity. We must also borrow from other legislations and other countries of what would happen if there is a crisis in the country. There's an election and then suddenly the media is shut down. You know, people are so used to this form of communication now. But then empowering the NC4 does not mean that unlawful activities or illegal activities are being perhaps maybe given a leeway. The Mother Act addresses those concerns. They are there. It is only that perhaps people pursue or decide not to pursue a matter in court. I can tell you as a fact, because I am an advocate and I have been harassed online politically. But there's also what we call political satire. We've seen it even with in the US, the most developed of democracies. That is something that we must protect. For the media, I saw a cartoon, I think yesterday, was on the Standard, you know, and it was about these cybersecurity act. And you know, for someone, it could be unlawful. I mean, they could decide they don't like it. But we must specify, is it the penal code that you're referring to? You know, we have all these other legislations that expressly state the offense, but you just can't generalize it and then abuse that, like we have seen with the Prevention of Terrorism Act. And governments are prone to exercising power, extra-constitutional. They cannot save or help themselves from that. So why do we want to give them the express power? The NC4 seats is a committee that where the PS Interior sits, the PS Information and IT, the Attorney General, the NIS, the head of NIS, the head of DPP, and you see, it is a very serious committee. It is actually the organ that sort of runs government, a shadow government sort of.
Yeah.
So they can decide overnight that they will switch off all social media platforms, and then what?
And
Why
when-
don't you
Yeah.
put a situation where there's supervision by the court? Then if it is actually proven prima facie that, well, yes, this is actually unlawful or illegal according to the legislation and the laws of Kenya or the penal code, then we can allow. Why is there no checks and balances?
You know, when you talk about the Cyber Crimes Act, there is the matter that was taken to court, and this is what Kigame says. The Act imposes a mandatory requirement for social media users to verify their accounts using legal names, which constitutes a severe and unjustifiable infringement on the rights of privacy. That is Article 31, and anonymous speech, a facet of freedom of expression, which is Article 33. And I'll give you an example of whistleblowers in the country. Someone who's gone to X, and there is something that they have uncovered, and they're posting it rightfully so that Kenyans know what is happening. But here is a question where the act that we have right now first demands that you identify yourself, who you are, so that whatever post there can directly be linked to you. And you look at what it is I do, my security, and my right to express myself, and equally decide to stay away from people knowing who I am, which has been guaranteed by the Constitution. Why does there seem to be an underhand in terms of checking who you are, tunakujua, and if you don't play by the book, we will do what it is we want? Is that the case? Is this to silence Kenyans so that they do not speak? Because I would read these together with the Finance Bill 2024, when Kenyans rally themselves on the social media. You talk about Njeri, who put up a website for public participation, and she was picked up. Seems this law comes to make sure work of Kenyans online, the Njeris of this world, do not speak.
I think it seeks to make it easier, also to maybe infringe on anonymity and the right to privacy. And also perhaps even in a way to circumvent ethical hacking, what we call ethical hacking, like what Julian Assange is doing with WikiLeaks. And these will actually now even impact directly on the media. Because then journalism also sometimes, the information that they might be covering might not be considered pro-system. And like I've said, the very vagueness of it, the amendments means that they can come for anyone. And to me, I do feel that even this provision that now they can even seek extradition if you're maybe you sought maybe asylum in the US, in Canada, they can now seek extradition to have you here and have you tried. So I do think that it is just the government is stretching their long arm. They're telling you, we're going to find you, like, wewe unasema nini online? Why are you telling people this, XYZ? And that is my major concern. And I'm glad that, even my senior, Otiende, was here yesterday. And he admitted that in Parliament, what passes is what is. Sometimes you'll find that members are not even perhaps maybe really scrutinizing the bills that are on the floor. So it is just the ayes and the nays, and people are just saying aye, and I'm like, oh my, have you actually scrutinized
Do you know the substance?
The substance of it, the effect that it will have cascading down. And I insist we must make laws for posterity. It is popular right now, maybe perhaps because some of those members are quote unquote in the broad-based government. They might not be in it 2 years from now, or 5 years or 10 years from now. And it will impact negatively on the Kenyan people, and especially the young people, the Gen Zs who have taken it upon themselves to express and converse and, associate and ensure that they push for better governance. It is a message that the government wants to send to them, that we can see you, we are coming for you, don't you dare. We can shut off your account, we can delete it completely.
And yet...
And we don't even have to go to court about it.
Indeed, or ask anybody for orders to be able to do that. And yet, the government seems to have their knickers in a twist over this, because PS Raymond Omolo then did come out yesterday to say, okay, all the hullabaloo is for nothing, essentially, because he said that... he issued a statement yesterday, rather on Tuesday, and he urged Kenyans to read the actual contents of the amended law rather than rely on social media commentary or selective summaries. He said that the majority of the online posts misrepresent the law's intent and its provisions. And then I quote, "A lot of what is being shared online about the amended Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act is misleading or outrightly false. We encourage citizens to read the adopted bills themselves to understand what has been changed." According to him, the new amendments are progressive and aim to strengthen Kenya's cybersecurity framework by increasing the power of the NC4. He said it is now empowered to issue legal directives against websites and online platforms found to be engaged in activities such as child pornography, human trafficking, and terrorism. It is along those lines that they're saying the NC4 has been empowered. He said that the act includes tougher measures to prevent harmful online behavior, such as deliberate actions that drive victims to suicide, bullying, and things like that. He stated that the provision demonstrates the government's commitment to protecting Kenyans from engaging in forms of digital harm and abuse. So it's not that Big Brother is watching you, it's that Big Brother is holding you. Do you see where I'm going? He then went on to say that the changes came at a crucial time as Kenya continues to advance its digital superhighway, one of the flagship pillars of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. And he emphasized that a secure and trustworthy digital environment is essential for innovation, e-commerce, efficient online services, and the protection of citizens' data and livelihoods. That is where the government is coming from. It is to protect Kenyans from vices. It's not that Big Brother is watching you and will snuff you out at the touch of a button.
I think that's why I say that the devil is always in the details, you know, and just for avoidance of doubt, I do like, because I'm an advocate, so I always rely on evidence. I do have the very act that was, the bill that was published, you know, the first publication done, and it has a stamp of the National Assembly, okay? And I will read out to you and to the listeners, just allow me to, section clause 3, which sought to amend clause 6 in regard to NC4, right? So Section 6 of the Principal Act is amended in subsection 1 by inserting the following new paragraphs immediately after paragraph J. It says, because he said that, you know, legal, he mentioned something that, you know, it is going to give a legal directive.
Yes.
Where it is proved that a website or application promotes illegal activities, child pornography, terrorism, extreme religious and cultic practices, issue a directive to render the website or application inaccessible. You always have to look beyond what is being seen. What can be termed as illegal activities? It is too vague. It is too general. Then you go to now, they actually further amended clause 3, and this is the order paper, supplementary order paper for Thursday, September 25th, 2025 at 2:30 p.m. So they further amended the clause that I read to you, and they say that clause 3 of the bill be amended by deleting the proposed new paragraph JA and substituting therefore with the following new paragraph JA, where it is proved, just listen to it and see the difference, where it is proved that a website or application promotes unlawful activities. They even make it more vague. Promotes unlawful activities, child abuse, terrorism, or religious extremism and cultism, issue a directive to render the website or application inaccessible. Now, if you look at it from face value, you're going to see terrorism, you're going to see child abuse, religious extremism, cultism, and you might stop there. But then you ask yourself, what is unlawful activities? And what is this power that is given to the NC4 that says to render the website or application inaccessible?
What exactly is that? So because there's ambiguity,
Yes.
what it does is that, and just from a legal point of view as well, because of the ambiguity, what it does is that it gives a blanket carte blanche, essentially, for anybody to come and arrest anybody over
Yes.
anything that they could deem to be unlawful.
Yes. You'd
So
be very
there's no
shocked.
threshold.
You know, there's no threshold, and it is very intentional. You know, drafters, and because I trained for 7 years for this, drafters are very intentional with the words. When they want to be specific, they're very specific, to the letter, to a comma, you know? But then when they want to be vague, they want to be as broad as can be so that anything can go. I'll give you an example. We are representing over 75 Gen Zs at Kahawa Law Courts.
Okay.
They're being charged with what we call terrorism under POTA. Terrorism is an international crime. So even the US government is interested in XYZ person who has been marked as someone who's been charged with terrorism in Kenya. So that means that if you're 19 years, because some of them are 19 years, some of them 18 years, that for the rest of your life, you're going to have something behind your back. You know, you're going to have a tag on you that's just never going to go away because this is an international crime. If you want to travel to Canada, if you want to go for this Kazi Maju program that the government is, you know, advocating for and telling the young people that they have employment opportunities for them, you have a tag on your back. In one of the charge sheets, because this is a fact so I can disclose it,
Yeah.
what is described as the contents of the charge is that a police officer was hit by a stone on one of the fingers. Pray tell, for you to be hit with a stone on just, you know, a hand has
5 fingers.
you know,
Yeah.
They're usually together.
Usually together, right? So for you to be hit with a stone on one of your fingers, how tiny does it need to be? Okay? And that is someone, those are the contents that have been used to charge someone with terrorism because POTA is so vague, it is so broad, it is so wide in description. And the drafters of it in 2012 did not foresee that it could be abused. And that's why I insist that we must make laws for posterity. We must think about the future. How can this law be abused? How can it be used by governments that want to maybe be an autocracy?
Would you then refuse what P.S. Omolo says here?
Certainly,
Where he-
certainly.
at the
And when you
very
see the
end of
government
it-
talking, when you see the government talking, there certainly is something about that law.
At the very end of it, he says, you know, all of this is being misconstrued. People are not reading it. And so they're making decisions based on what other people have said. And he finishes this by saying, these laws are actually there to protect people, to protect Kenya's children from pornography, child trafficking, online trafficking, and things like this. And not to give the big brother stance where it wants to be punitive, but the big brother stance where it wants to be protective. No?
But we've no issue with that. I've no issue with protection from child pornography, child abuse, terrorism is too vague for me. But I have an issue with unlawful activities, which is non-defined, too vague, too broad, and giving NC4 powers to render the website or application inaccessible even without judicial, you know, oversight.
Would you be able to go
Why?
over again who makes up the NC4?
The NC4 is it has quite a number of persons that sit there.
Yeah.
But there's a PS, of course. Omolo would sit there certainly. Then the PS ICT. Then the AG would sit there. NIS would sit there. The DPP would sit there.
Okay.
I think there are 2 other people I can't remember. But it's a very high level. It is a high level shadow government. Okay? I mean, you can tell from the persons that I've mentioned.
Sit there.
So when they have the powers to shut down applications or websites, applications, Facebook is an application, Twitter is an application, so is TikTok, you know? When they do have that power to shut down websites, maybe like what Njeri was doing when she was just merely trying to have people participate in opinion expressing themselves, Article 32 of the Constitution of Kenya. When you give the NC4 express powers to shut down, I mean, really, have some decency, have some just judicial oversight. There is nothing that would be amiss with filing an application in court, you know, having the other party respond, and then a ruling is given or a directive that XYZ is actually illegal or unlawful because it offends sections XYZ of the Penal Code or any other legislation in Kenya, and it is pulled down. But then if you want to just have express powers as a government, that is essentially the government that I read. It is a government that sits on NC4. So you can't just give those express powers to the government without supervision. They will be abused.
Yet, you talk of the PS says this is meant to protect Kenyans. So here is the specific article that you have a problem with that gives express powers to NC4 to do what it is they want to do. But then again, there is how it is lumped up together with things that we can now read terrorism, pornography, and they're lumped up together to create a notion, correct me if I'm wrong, to create a notion that this other part is silent, but what Kenyans can see is the pornography because it has been expressly put up. Is it attacked to confuse Kenyans or to hide the details that Kenyans should be focusing on?
You know, I did see some members of the House, you know, House leadership, actually say that persons who are rejecting these acts want to promote pornography, want to protect child abusers, wants to protect the shakaholas, perpetuators, and all that. And I keep insisting the devil is always in the details. You know, there's a reason they're just bringing that out when they're speaking out about it and highlighting it and not saying expressly that the NC4 will have powers to shut down Twitter, to shut down Facebook. Why are they leaving that information? It is called, you know, it is selective communication. You communicate what you want to communicate, what favors you and what favors your narrative. But then let them also tell Kenyans that the NC4 will have express powers to decide even overnight, midnight. You know, midnight decisions. I mean, we all know how things run in this country. We know when we had the impeachment of the DP, the former DP, that they were printing, the government printer was working 24 hours around the clock. Files were flying from counties like Kirinyaga to Nairobi High Court within minutes. I mean, really.
Yeah. So it seems as though they're hiding some things in broad daylight, you know?
Yeah.
But the fear here is that what happens to people who are focused on citizen-led governance, right? Because these things, when we say give power to the NC4, essentially who's giving power is the people of Kenya through their delegated representatives in Parliament as the legislature. The legislature. That's who gives them the power to do so. But it would appear as though it's not the people who are actually giving them the power, that it's taking this power to then be able to curtail the rights of the people. And why I say this is, last week I met this brilliant young man, Michael Mushiri, who is one of those who started to translate the finance bill into different languages. And of course, we met Rose and Jerry, who was making sure that, you know, you have an understanding in basic English or other languages about what's really happening. It seems to me that such people or such platforms essentially would be targets because somebody can come and say, you're doing government's job, so we have to shut you down. You're telling people things that maybe is our job. So anybody is fair game here. Anybody could be the target here, and there are people who are genuinely wanting to put out information out there that they can't get. We normally say government are the worst communicators because they never tell anybody what they're doing until the very last minute. So here are people essentially who might want to help government, just tell people what's going on. But it looks as though they have, you know, the target is wide open and it could actually hit on them for something that they want to do, which is direct opposite of harm. How then do you now say, how do you then beg for those rights not to be curtailed if such a law, if people have already defined it, draconian, punitive, how do you then protect from things like this beyond a court order, which we already know is in place? How do you protect beyond that?
Actually, the court order is only in regard to to Section 27.
Okay.
It's not even in regard to clause 3 or Section 6. And I'm certain that their lawyers were also working on a petition in regard to that clause. You've mentioned something that sometimes is very concerning to me, and members of parliament draw their powers from the people directly. We are supposed to represent what the people want and the needs of the people, and advocate for them in policy making, in legislation making on the floor of the National Assembly. But unfortunately, I think that line has become too blurred for the 13th Parliament. And with the advent of the broad-based government, it is as if the 13th Parliament does not exist as an entity that would have any modicum of independence, any shred of it. And the dissenting voices sometimes they're too few that it's not even sometimes rational to even perhaps try fight the system. And I think what keeps people like me going is just knowing that I do have to represent my people. I did participate in the debate in regard to this now act. I do recall giving my sentiments and voicing out concerns on giving powers, express powers to NC4. I actually even went further to recommend an amendment. But then if you're not properly aligned in terms of your political leaning in parliament, it becomes a cutting point where your views are not really considered. Sometimes you might not even get time to address the floor, and it can be very defeatist in a way.
Do you know what you've just said?
Yeah.
Yes.
You've just said, and if I'm correct, to open this up, that because of your leanings towards former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, you might have something that is actually solid when it comes to legislation for the people of Kenya, but you will not be given an opportunity to raise such issues in Parliament.
Yes. That is actually what I just said. It's become so, the lines are so blurred that people cannot tell the difference. They can't seem to tell the difference between, political leaning or considered political leaning, maybe if you're considered a party rebel, and maybe a bill that would benefit Kenyans, or a legislative amendment that is actually important. And, it feels so, sometimes you feel that your hands are tied. I do recall that I've seen some of my colleagues being asked why they haven't maybe pushed for this XYZ amendment. Amendments are approved by the House, the House Business Committee. You're not popular with them, they won't get anywhere. The order paper is prepared by the House Business Committee. It decides what appears or doesn't appear.
But hang on. You were a darling of President William Ruto. That's not a secret. He propped you up properly. You, of course, went to the people at 24 years of age.
No, 24. 28.
28. Okay, let's add some 4 years to that.
Yeah.
But yes, propped you up. But the people of Kirinyaga wanted you. But it was no secret that, again, you were a darling of the president today, and a member of the party, and pushing the party agenda. And in 3 short years, what you're basically telling me now is that you can sit in Parliament today and want to raise an issue and you will not be heard. How do the tables turn so quickly?
It's not even you will not be heard, you will not be seen. Because, in Parliament, for you to address Parliament, you actually have to key in your card and you have to press the button to request to speak. I mean, if there's essentially, let's say, 300 plus members of Parliament, of course, it's never a full house. Sometimes maybe you'll have 70 or 100, irrespective of the number. Correct? It can be rationalized or it can be justified that, well, there were so many other members that we didn't manage to get to you, despite the fact that perhaps
there's-
you
Yeah,
actually
there are many of
walked in before other members. So even if you were to go to court about it, I mean, it could be explained away. And I know that because I'm an advocate, so I can see the loopholes of how they would angle it. So that's why I've said that sometimes you feel your hands are so tied. You really want to do something, to say something, to contribute to a topic, but then you're not politically correct according to the powers that be. And if you were to comment on that certain topic, you wouldn't be supporting the agenda of the government of the day. You'd be perhaps opposing it. So it happens that, well, you're not seen. If you were to go to court, it would be said that, well, there were so many members on the floor that day, and unfortunately, we didn't get to you.
But what happens at the time when, say, at the committee level, where, because such matters are also discussed at committee levels, committee of the whole house, and at that particular point when this matter is being prosecuted and even public participation, I want to ask the question from the word go when these amendments are being introduced. Is it that the parliamentary process is just a by the way, but we already have the target and what we want, and anything that happens in between is not consequential?
First, you've raised something I think had actually escaped my mind about public participation. Public participation is non-defined in Kenya. So it's sort of a mirage. You know, the various entities, committees, decide to run it as they please.
There is no standard
sometimes
way.
you'll find that there's no standard guiding operating procedure of what connotes a public participation. So sometimes you'll find that, well, there's been like a publication on the Kenya Gazette that on XYZ day, we're going to be receiving contributions or public opinions in regard to this XYZ bill, right? It's put out there. It's a notice. Then the committee maybe perhaps will sit somewhere and then say that they are picking views, right? But then you just can't walk right in and just like give your views. You know, you have to be like, there's a bit of like the rules of engagement. Maybe you send an email, or maybe you request through the clerk, or maybe you have to request the sergeants if you can come in and address the committee. So that hampers robust public participation, okay? And if you send me an email, I mean, you're not aware whether I'm actually going to read it and consider it, right? But you've sent it to me, so I've checked a box that we have done public participation. So, and that is why I had gone to court, you recall, during the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua.
Yes.
Because it is done in such a shabby manner to just like tick a box and like maybe perhaps communicate to the public that we have engaged you, but those views are not really, really considered. At the end of the day, what the government intends to achieve, let's say maybe we have a bill, the finance bill, right? The party positions are given. So you find that it is very conflicting if, as a member of parliament, you can't decide for yourself what is more superior. Is it the people's position or the party's position or your position? You have three conflicting positions, and you have to be very grounded to decide what is going to carry the day. And like you've said, you know, I'd say I had a cordial relationship with the president and his deputy. But then I think for me along the line that I really asked myself as a young person, you know, and especially in regard to the finance bill of 2024, can I really continue supporting a government that is expressly just oppressing the people? You know, and we often say as young people that we want change in leadership and all that. But then the house is so corrupting. It is so easy to just get carried away in the, you know, the camaraderie of it, the choppers, the big life. You're close to the
Power.
the power, and that is why you find some of the young people who are very critical during the 2024 protests getting lost along the way. It is so alluring that it is so hard to resist. You have to really fight every day to just stay on the right side and on the side of the people. Yeah.
I want to look at these cybercrime law as is, the Mother Act. And with that, bring forth the agencies, the C4, the agencies that will investigate matters. Let's look at the police to investigate these matters. Let's go to the courts to prosecute these matters. At that time, are we admitting that the police are unable to do their job and bring those who are the culprits, those who are culpable of breaking the law, to justice? Or is it just a question of, we know elections are coming, we know Kenyans will go online, we have a history based off the Finance Bill 2024 and what happened online, and this is an easier way of us to stop everything else, because the previous Mother Act makes it a bit difficult for us?
I don't think it's a question of whether the police are capable or incapable. I do think that governments are seriously concerned about the power of social media, the conversations happening, the enlightenment, the literacy levels now. You cannot say that the literacy levels are maybe, say, what was there in the 1980s, 1960s when Kenya was attaining independence. They're so high right now.
Yeah.
People are having conversations about governance, about, budgetary allocations, about where taxpayers' monies are being poured into. I do think that is a major concern for governments, the conversations happening online, the kind of canvassing, the kind of community support you've seen, and that's why TikTok is such a target, because it is such a powerful community. And when you challenge the system, when you challenge the foundations of maybe the balance of power, where maybe perhaps as politicians we've always been we've been very good at containing that flow of information. That is why you're saying that it's very hard to get information. Information is there. It is available. They can disseminate it. There's a government spokesperson. Ministries have spokespersons. They have a comms team. It is just intentional not to give information, because information is power. When someone is informed that, in this county, this is the budget, these are the allocations, this is the funding from maybe World Bank and other entities, grants. They're able to question then, where is XYZ money going? Where is the money for maybe value addition going to? Why can't we see these translating? So information is always there. It is available. The people are there to communicate. It's just intentional that we contain information. And I do believe that is a worry for the government. They do know that we are going towards an election period.
Right.
People will be disseminating information, sharing old videos of, they said this, they did this, they said this, they did this. They don't want that. So that is why we are empowering the NC4.
Yeah, essentially to get to know this information, and as we do that, people are still hungry for knowledge, because it's this very same knowledge that folks feed off of to then make a decision, because we're into a decision-making period in the next 1 year, 1.5 years. And so people want this information to then enable them to make a decision. That's just how it works. So even as we look at all of this, we can't run away from the political skew of things in the last couple of days. We do know the late Right Honourable Raila Odinga passed away last week. He was buried. And the political atmosphere is hot around this. Yesterday, we saw that a neighboring county of Kirinyaga, Nyeri County Governor, then steps aside from his position in the Council of Governors. And of course, there's the heavy backlash that has come based on what he said. And the way in which people got to know about this is that this information was online. Right? It was shared and reshared. Somebody was able to pick it up, do a translation, and we get that information out there. it is because of that people got to know what was going on, and then all of this has happened as a result of that. So the two questions here, your thoughts around what has been happening politically over the last couple of days, and then also, at the end of the day, isn't this then social media, these accounts, isn't it a good thing that will then open up in terms of information for what might be lurking in the atmosphere?
I do think communication is a very important aspect. And even mainstream media now, because of social media, sometimes you might find out information online before mainstream media has, because I am certain that they have to verify it first before they share. So sometimes you find that you've already found out about it. And, I do think it is very unfortunate that we can see leaders making some comments that would drive a divide among communities. And it is very insensitive when you have a leadership position to say some things or maybe communicate in a way that you're not empathetic. Right Honorable Raila Odinga, whether you agree with him politically or not, whether he was your leader or not, we cannot take away from the fact that he has made monumental contributions to Kenya's democracy. He has been an integral part of the journey and the constitution that we enjoy today. And he does have, of course, also a very large following and people that believed in his leadership. So it was quite unfortunate to see those remarks from my neighboring county. And not the county, it is a person, it is an individual. And I don't think that, then I saw the response from Governor Wanga and from the remarks from Governor Kahiga, and I thought, well, I mean, even the response was just as disappointing.
As the original
because then if I have made a mistake as Njeri Maina, saying Njeri Maina has said XYZ, she's done wrong. If you're charged in a court of law, you're not charged collectively, you're charged at an individual capacity. But then to want to push the political divide and ramp up ethnic tension, it is unfortunate in this era, day and age. Because I think Kenya has come of age and grown above and beyond that. Because if someone is struggling with SHA in Kirinyaga County, in Kisumu they're also struggling, or in CI or Homa Bay County. If the economy is not working, is taken a dive, whether you're a Kikuyu, Luo, Kalenjin, we will all suffer together. This legislation that is being passed, that we're passing in Parliament, it affects all of us across board. It might be convenient for people who think they're in government right now, but it will be inconvenient sooner than later, perhaps even sooner than they can actually imagine. So let us, I think, as leaders, learn to, even if you have nothing to say, just keep quiet, like just stay silent, You'd rather actually not comment than just say inflammatory remarks. And we are at a tipping point. If people were to call for demos today, do you imagine what Kenya would be right now? And I keep saying and I keep insisting, even with this legislation, even when I was breaking it down, that we do have an avenue to go to court. It is not a call for me as a member of parliament and as an officer of the court, as a young person, to demonstrations, because I do believe in democracy. The president was elected. It's a 5-year term. He finishes his term. If we are voting him out, we vote him out on the ballot. And that is the way democracies operate. I mean, we don't want the military taking over. We all wouldn't have our jobs. I mean, I wouldn't have mine. You wouldn't have mine. People wouldn't be able to work. We don't want to go the way we've seen majority of the West African countries go. So we have to be responsible and to know the agenda we are pushing. And even when we communicate, how we are communicating. To be empathetic to other people, to just engage a bit of wisdom when we are, touching on very sensitive topics, so that we don't tip the country to a situation where we all would not want to see. I don't think anyone is ready to pay the price themselves or have their loved one pay the price. And if you're not able to pay that price yourself or your loved one, you see them pay that price, then please don't push Kenya towards that.
You know, you've talked about if you don't have anything to talk about, just shut up, just be silent, you know. One person that has been silent is Rigathi Gachagua. Is he? Where is he? He's been quiet, especially during this time. Any ideas?
I don't know why you prefer to ask me. You could have asked Atiende Omolo that. Anyway, I digress. I do believe that I saw him give his condolences, and sometimes, you know, things don't have to be public.
Yeah.
You know, I can reach out to you privately. Perhaps we all don't know because we haven't asked him whether he has given his private condolences. We did see him give his public condolences. I do think that we were all taking a step back, scaling a bit back from political activities. There were 7 days of mourning. And I do believe he was just observing that as a Kenyan citizen, as someone who is, despite his political differences with the former Prime Minister, also respects, you know, that Kenya has lost a very monumental figure. And even when we differ politically, I think we must also learn to respect each other and look beyond and above that. So I think he's just also observing, keeping off politics a while to observe the 7 days of mourning. Perhaps maybe we'll hear from him when they are over. I think tomorrow. Is it tomorrow?
Ended yesterday.
Ended yesterday. Yeah. Maybe we'll hear from him. Maybe from tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we close this conversation, one thing that we've also come to realize is that, to an extent, members of parliament seem to be politicking a lot more than they are legislating, and that it's upsetting that the core, the thing that you talk about having a job, the thing that gives you a job, the thing Kenyans have asked you to go and do, is not being done. And even when it's being done, shoddy is what describes it best. Because we have legislation like this making its way through. We have endorsements flying through the window where it seems as though scrutiny and critical thinking is not being applied. How do we claw back? And how do we get Parliament to do what constitutionally they're supposed to, and for the expectation of Kenyans they should do?
I liked what the public did with holding members accountable in regard to the 2024 finance bill. I had like thousands of messages, WhatsApp messages on my phone. But then I do think also as a Kenyan people, we lack consistency, right? We have a duty also to hold our leaders accountable. We have a duty to follow proceedings on the floor of Parliament. We have a duty to be interested with what is being passed, what is being debated. This act, and I have said it before, is a 2024 act. That means it just didn't happen overnight, right? It has actually been there. It has been progressively debated from, I think, 12th of August. There was a first reading for it. There was a public participation for it. So the information was out there that this is the amendment and that this is the information there. But then I do think that maybe perhaps when it's not given a limelight, maybe by the mainstream media, sometimes that information
Doesn't come out. If, let's say, people from XYZ constituencies are following and telling their member of parliament, hey, there's this bill, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Amendment Bill of 2024, it has this clause XYZ, please don't pass it. Make sure you are in the house on that day. Make sure we will actually be following live proceedings to see whether you're in the house. In the event that you're told to vote no, and you know that maybe 100 or 200 of your constituents have actually written to you, you'll actually take caution. I do believe that you would, because, well, they wrote for the finance bill and they didn't take caution. It just occurred to me. But you would want to take. I do believe that. I want to believe that members learned something from the 2024 finance bill, and I want to believe that they would want to pay attention if they had those communications from their constituents, and then they would actually be on the floor
And if there's an issue of the aye and the nays, then they would call for division, because even calling for division requires numbers.
Sure.
You have to have the numbers. The people who are now rebel MPs, who are not in broad-based or in government, they are actually so few to call for a division.
Yeah.
So even if you want to put up a fight, it's like you're bringing a stick to a gunfight.
Right. How are you going to get through?
Yeah.
And those are the questions. It's been a brilliant session with you. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with us. Welcome back. Everybody's been taking this sabbatical. Welcome back. And we're glad that you did that here this morning.
Thank you. I nearly lost the mojo.
Well, it's clear that you still have it. Jerry
there.
Minor is the women rep for Kirinyaga County. Has been here with us this morning. Thank you so much for doing that. Our conversations continue. It's 8:02. Good morning.
94. This is the Situation Room. The only way